What's going on, guys? Brandon Charleston here with another tutorial. Change things up a bit around here, trying to clean up, things like that. But I wanted to go over some things I've been working on and share knowledge with you guys. As always, I try to make things as simple as possible, but also dive a little bit deeper in the technical areas of AI, large language models, and everything around automations and using them in effective use cases versus, the surface level stuff like that. All fun and games, but let's real talk. So I had some chats with my employees and some partners of mine, and as well as other people that I'm consulting. And I think there is definitely a lot to talk about. There's things that people are not talking about with AI, and there's people that are talking about a lot of things. I think we all know what ChatGPT is, especially if you watch my channel. We know what Claude is. Hopefully you do. There's a number of different large language models that you probably use every day. I like to refer to them as the consultants. And so it's continuously evolving, and there's always new features, obviously, that are really difficult to keep up with. And I have actually found a little bit of a different method that really keeps me sharp. It helps me to stay sharp, stay abreast and knowledgeable on the latest technologies. And a lot of these technologies are very new that nobody really knows because it's all experimental. And the best source is actually what you're doing right now, which is watching YouTube or just trying to experiment and figure it out, right? And so this video hopefully will show you just a little bit of a different way to interact with AI and LLMs. And you might actually think like, what the hell? Like, seriously? You hear about vibe coding, now you hear about vibe marketing, you hear about vibe sales. Well, I'll just start a new trend. Let's call it vibe learning. Anyway, we'll just continue here. So what I'm going to show you here is the differences and similarities on using different chatbots like ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, all the things, right? The consultants, as I would say. And I'm going to introduce you to Cursor or Windsurf. I use Cursor primarily, but I do have Windsurf. And I actually asked my employees to download these platforms as well, because even though they are considered IDEs or like coding for the most part, as far as their primarily their use case, I really think they're super powerful to actually use for a knowledge base and just understanding good and documenting things to where you can actually really get some powerful knowledge within on your computer, and that way you can really grow yourself, your I wouldn't say your code base or your database rather, but really it's a knowledge base, right? And so we'll just dive in here. So I am in several chatbots. I want to demonstrate just kind of a high level, just to kind of give a disclaimer here. So as you all know, we have ChatGPT, currently o3 is the latest model that's out. That's a reasoning. That's the most powerful. We have o4, you know what I'm talking about. But here's the difference is this is one of the most popular chatbots that we use. It definitely has a lot of powerful features. It also does, deep research, and you can work with different applications, which I cover on my channel, and there's definitely a lot of content revolving around it, where it can even edit in the Notion, it can edit in Cursor, it can edit in a number of things, including your Notes app, to be able to interact, even the terminal, right? And so it's super powerful, and I think there's definitely a lot of innovation here, but it's still, like, let's be honest here. This ChatGPT is only going to let you use their models, right? Because it's their application. Fair enough, right? Now let's hop over to Claude. Claude is definitely one of my favorites, and they also introduced Anthropic, rather. They introduced MCP, which is Model Context Protocol. Think of it like a USB port for any API or any sort of functionality. It allows you to really connect kind of a peripheral to extend the functionality of large language models well beyond a typical API. And so that's super powerful because it allows you to do a lot of things, and for the APIs and things like that to be able to have a standardized way, a lot more than the API has come out years ago as far as an open protocol, to where how software interacts with each other, right? It's kind of like the traffic of the internet, how data is passed through. And if you watch my channel, we talk about Clay, N8N, a lot of automation tools where you're really passing data in multiple ways. And so MCP is still young, but it's definitely catching obviously a lot of traction. It's going viral. And I'm having a lot of fun with MCP. And so I have a number of different MCP servers here. I have somewhere in the range of 60 something tools, but that's not that's nothing. But I would just say I can, within Claude, I could have it scrape with Firecrawl, and I was using Brave before their functionality of search, but it's nice that they have that there. I can also edit the Notion, and a lot of times it actually goes on and on and on, and sometimes it needs to complete a task. So I created my own MCP server to do like a quick ding when it's done. So that's useful. That way I know, when it's done working. And then Puppeteer, and then good old N8N, which they have also released their beta version, or alpha rather. It's definitely young, and I'm experimenting with it, but it's nice to see that N8N is hopping on the bandwagon as well. One of my favorite platforms. So anyway, as you can see here, I'm trying to see what that looks like in terms of transcribing YouTube, which I'll get in here in a second. But that's Claude. Basically you're only going to be able to use 2 models here, or actually more. But a lot of times you're confined, or actually you are confined to using Claude within the chat app, right? So then let's hop over to my next favorite one, which is Grok, right? Grok, if you're not already using it, it is outstanding. It is really good. In fact, Grok 3 Mini is one of the cheapest reasoning models that you can use, and it's just super powerful. So I really like Grok. Grok is definitely making waves. In fact, they claim that 3.5 should be released next week. You know how that goes. We'll see. But you already know the train is continuing. Innovation, the numbers are just going to go up. The models are going to get bigger. The context windows, all the things, right? But again, if you go to Grok.com, you're only going to use their model. You see the catch here, which I'm getting to in a second. And then you have Grok with a Q. Now, Grok with a Q, actually this application is in beta and just came out like less than a week ago. But the really cool thing is you can actually hop different models, DeepSeek, Meta, Gemma, Llama 3, that kind of thing. Llama 4 is Meta's most recent open source. But the cool thing about Grok is, and I'll save this for another video, but this is an MCP host as well, to where you can use MCP servers. And the big thing about Grok with a Q, which is a hardware company, by the way, Grok with a K is XAI, or Elon's thing, is it's fast. It's the inference speed is just boom, boom, boom. They claim lots of tokens per second, as they rightfully so, because they're on LPUs rather than GPUs. But again, that's another video. My point is you can do a little bit of LLM hopping here, but it's still limited in terms of what I'm going to talk about here in a second. And then finally, you have good old Gemini, which is Google's LLM. And I think that you pretty much know where I'm getting at. You can use 2.5 and whatever the new, Gemini is going to be. There's a lot of advantages for using the consultants in different ways. Either use them all to really understand a really good scenario, or deep research, or anything like that, as far as really just covering all your bases and getting as much information as possible, and then aggregating that data into one report to really have solidified and hopefully accurate data with proper sources, right? There are also good advantages, or I would say advantages, not good advantages, of using their interface, because they can do artifacts. You can do multimodal. Sometimes you can do like voice, obviously. There's a number of different ways. Like you can do canvases, generate images. There's a lot of reasons to be in the app. I would say everyday stuff, it's like, cool, do research on the best restaurant, or summarize this PDF, little things like that. I would like to call these beginner, maybe not so beginner, because they can go really advanced, but consumer grade type of stuff. But when you're dealing with a lot of different LLMs. I mean, like what I do every day, and you're testing the limits, you're testing trends, your inference speed, and cost, and all these kinds of things. A lot of times you need to hop LLMs because the information is just not either coming out enough. And here's the other thing that you're going to find with all of them is this is a chat window where the context window is only going to get so big, right? So LLMs have what you call a context window, which basically is working memory. And so think of it like a conversation. If you and I started a conversation and I talked about, what I did this morning or what I ate for breakfast, let's say the end of the day happens and we've been talking all day. Let's just say you and I are just having a good old time, right? We're talking like a few beers in, whiskey, whatever. Are you really going to remember the first thing I said this morning? Probably not. So your context window might be large, it might be small. That's what these things are, right? Your working memory. So hopefully that puts a little bit of practical perspective on that. So here's the thing, is when you're working with an LLM and you are giving it context and you're like, no, do this, now do this. And then you start a new chat and you do a lot of these things. And a lot of times you'll actually have too much in there to where it doesn't even remember the first thing you said. And then you're going to have to hop another LLM or you have to start a new chat. And then you got to give it all the information all over again because it doesn't know what the hell you're talking about. It's like the Matrix happened, just psh, and you're flashed, right? Or you have no idea where you're at and what's happening, right? So that is the limitation with that, and it begins to be a bit annoying, especially if you're working on some deep tasks and you want to be able to transfer context or build bigger projects. And so that's where what I think a solution would be for you guys. And so what I would suggest, if you're not already in a platform like Cursor or Windsurf, basically it's a fork of VS Code, which it is a code editor. It's an IDE, right? But here's the thing. This code editor can create files. It can actually run scripts. It can execute terminal commands. So that right there is already super powerful, which none of these can do, right? It can create a code snippet. MCP could create a file, but it just becomes wonky. That's not their primary purpose, at least right now, right? Well, the thing with Cursor and Windsurf is you can just simply create a folder on anywhere on your hard drive, and you bring up Cursor or Windsurf, and you target that directory. That directory is the project, and then everything in that folder is the working environment, essentially. And so that's super powerful. And I say that because what you could do is you can begin to build a knowledge base right on your hard drive, everything about you and what you want to learn and documents that you want to, retrieve in and store for like later. Think of it like your library, but the LLM, whatever you choose, has access to it and you can immediately feed it with context. Let me demonstrate. So all you need to do, first off, download Cursor, download Windsurf, right? Register. I think that they're super affordable nowadays, especially with the likes of Claude and all them, $20 a month, that kind of thing. So super affordable. In fact, Windsurf just revamped a lot of theirs with a nice freemium type of model. So anyway, you don't even have to be anywhere coding, right? But what you can do is you can start a project. The first thing you want to do is outline rules and the objective of the project. Typically in a coding environment, this is exactly what we do in the first place. So we'll do like a spec sheet or a PRD, that's typically what I've been told anyway. But you want to outline the scope of the project. You want to say the objective, what you're looking to achieve. You have a roadmap of specific things. It really doesn't need to be that complicated. The overall thing here is I will open up a blank folder and I'll just turn on that Siri dictation. Believe it or not, I still use it. It works well for me. But if you turn on, say Super Whisper or Whisper Flow or any voice to text type of thing, definitely trust me. I have yet to meet anybody that can type faster than they can talk. So I'm just going to say that. I like to really just talk to my computer and it just spits out all the words. I'll make some few tweaks, like it doesn't always know what N8N is. I've seen all the things. And so what I would suggest is just brain dump and just say, I need you to help me organize a knowledge base of all these things that I'm interested in, and then name what you're interested in. Say that you are looking to help, you're looking for help to monitor updates. You're looking for help on being able to aggregate different sources of data like web scraping, API documents. It could be YouTube channel or YouTube videos. It could be monitoring a channel. It could be X posts. Could be a lot of different sources, right? And so I have thought through, okay, especially when it comes to AI, things are always happening. Obviously, solo, it's really difficult. So a lot of times you and I, and we're all, believe it or not, it's a pretty small community. There's a very small percentage of people who are really, you could be passionate about it, but like to actually get into the trenches of how AI and LLMs work, like myself, I like to just know everything about what it comes to, how to work it, if it breaks, how do you fix it? That's just kind of been my core forever, especially in the service. So I would say just outline everything you want to do and then just talk to the AI model, right? Just kind of go off on and talk to it. And the core thing here that I would say is to make what you call Markdown files. And so you have MD files, .md, which basically looks like this. And then MDC is a cursor rules file. So you can have different rule types to where it'll always apply. Or if you want it to be auto-attached or agent requested or manual. I wouldn't really worry about these too much. But basically, the TLDR is that if it's something you always, in any chat, you want it to take in consideration so it doesn't go off track, just mark it as always. There's going to be some of these that I have when I'm talking about it, like, for example, personal brand voice or personal voice profile, basically a background about me and how I talk and all these things, just to document how I'm evolving and how I'm speaking, because obviously you want to grow, right? I wouldn't want assistance on something I said like 5 years ago, right? So there might be some similarities, but you would think and hope that you got smarter and better, right? So I, when it comes to AI, I thought very carefully, okay, what would that look like? AI is moving so fast, and I wouldn't necessarily want to pull, for example, GPT 3.5 information if that's no longer relevant or if it's something that's going to be deprecated or no longer used, right? So in terms of core principles, there are frameworks, there are fundamentals, there are essential things of how it actually, like the anatomy really, of how AI and large language models are put together and how they operate and how they evolve, right? Everybody's still learning a lot about these things when it comes to just use, safety, how they work, all that kind of stuff. But I want this to be a specific window of time, not necessarily time-based, but just to be aware of what is coming out and what is the latest about what's happening. And so I would say that I generally made it very specific in context. So that way, anytime I start a fresh chat, it's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. It's going to know what to pull from. It's going to know the structure of how I want to organize and grow a knowledge base. It's going to know my interests. It's going to know essentially everything that I want to organize. So that way, if I'm hopping in and out of Clay or N8N, or if I'm doing full coding projects, I can use this as a reference, basically my digital library that's tailored to me, right? If I were to hop into Gemini or Claude or any of them, I have to, number one, start from scratch, or I have to feed it like to some large PDF, or it's just going to take too much time to be like, what am I talking about? And then at best, you're going to get a web search, which it's a hit or miss. You may go to the API documents, or you may go to like a website and it might search it. But that's not always the best option in my opinion, versus like a real scrape or getting like right from some sort of YouTube channel, which is a transcript, right? And so I have outlined the knowledge base. Feel free to take a screenshot, anything like that, that basically helps you guys out. And then content automation. I made some content automation rules that for me to create content and to make sure it's valuable to you guys. That I'm going to continue to do that and make sure I stay on track, right? So I want this to stay on track. And then I have content generation workflow rules where it's just really focused on the structure, the research, that kind of thing. So that way when I ask it a question, be like, hey, how should I structure this? Like, what am I looking at, right? Knowledge-based guidelines. This is a big one for me. Technology focus, data sources that I'm interested in, data collection. These are different directory structures that I want to be able to capture. And then we have knowledge-based structure. So I basically want it to be core to the topic. I don't want things to be scattered. For example, if I want to research anything about clay or N8N or instantly or like A2A as an example, there's a video on that coming soon, or MCP. And if I'm speaking French, and I apologize if you're from France, but these are very new technologies that a lot of people don't even know because this is so new, right? So a lot of it is just community, me watching other experts, things like that, me learning from each other or you and things like that. So anyway, I digress. LangChain monitoring. So LangChain is, in my opinion, one of the good pioneers of a lot of things that when it comes to LLM applications like Langsmith, tracing, LangGraph, that kind of thing. There's a lot of good information and they are just on fire. They're rolling out things like crazy. So I want to monitor that, right? And then monitoring automation. Basically, this is an evolving and a work in progress for me, but I'm looking to, it's like, how do you automate that? Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be every day because you just don't know if something's coming out every day, even though it kind of is. But I'm thinking more along the lines like if I ask a question and it's applicable to that technology, before anything is actually done, it should check first if there's a new technology or some recent release like a version or anything like that to really just audit and verify if there was something that was released, right? Like if I'm using 4.1 and 4.2 came out, well, then I want to know about that, right? So there's just a lot of things happening all over the place. And this is a way, in my opinion, to kind of put a vacuum on that or just have a good pulse on things. And so there's my monitoring standards, basically did that. And all I did to come up with this is I basically told the LLM to come up with this. This is why I want to do it. This is a snapshot of how I want to track things. And then all I have to do, if I want to pull this in, well, this is manual. But so if something's it's always going to be attached to the chat. But if I need to do monitoring standards, I could basically just add something and then I could easily just pull in the context window or pull it into the chat, and it's going to be in the context window to know exactly what I'm looking at, right? And I'll tell you why this is even more powerful too. So these are all the files, which is not a whole lot, just starting out. But I have a knowledge base here when it comes to A to A, myself, because I basically want to brain dump everything about my history, when it comes to military, working with tech, video, just everything, right? Because I think that's going to help when I feed it and I say, hey, I want to create a content around this video. I want to create content around this topic. It's going to help me create ideas and maybe think about things that I didn't necessarily think on myself in order to boost productivity, make sure things sound, real. You want to be real, right? You don't want to sound like a noner or anything like that. But, and anyway, I digress. But you're able to really just keep track of the different areas that you want to do. Now, what I did actually is pull Apify. So Apify, if you don't know, is a great scraping platform. They have what you call actors, which basically scrape anything you want. And they have a good YouTube scraper on there where if I just say, scrape this YouTube video, I have it in an N8N workflow where I see and I could monitor things like that. And then Clay also has a good YouTube monitoring as well, as far as transcripts. But I'm thinking more like in a knowledge base, right? I want this local. And so if I need something to be scraped, or if I need a specific video that I want to understand context about and put this into my knowledge base, then I could process it. And then it's essentially going to create a Markdown file automatically, and then put it right into the proper or the appropriate folder. And this is really why I think this is powerful. So call this a super agent because it could do terminal commands. It could run scripts, right? It could also create things for you like files and anything you really want to. And you might know a thing or two. You might actually start to read some code and you're just like, oh, it's not so bad, because it's really not, in my opinion. I think so. But the one thing that I love the most is I'm in one window. Well, two things actually. I could start a new chat, and you could see here that this already transferred a summarization about everything we talked about. It transfers it over. It's like turnover, right? That's one thing. The next thing I like is these modes. I guess that's three. So the one thing is the starting a new chat where context is transferred in a way. Not so much, it's not the files, but it's what you talked about. And then you would just add context to the files, right? And then you have different modes. You have agent, which will actually execute on things. And if you have autopilot or YOLO mode on, it'll do a lot autonomously for you. You have ask, which means it's just going to look at things, but it's not going to make any changes. But you can just basically like a consultant be like, hey, what does this even mean? You know what I mean? And so manual, this is more done with you, where you ask it to do things, it will do it, but it's going to rely on you to write things in like code or anything you want. And then there's planning. This is more development focused to make sure that things are outlined, like a tech stack and things like that. YOLO mode, I spoke about that. YOLO basically just goes off and creates it on a whim. And then I like this as power. I think this is powerful too, but teach. And I create a prompt around, just learning, because I'll create something and might suggest something and I'll be like, tell me about that, but don't do anything, right? So I just changed the system prompt more of, instead of you're a senior software engineer, you're more of a consultant or you're a professor, right? And so you're going to be able to teach me like, what is this, right? What is this new technology, or what do you know about it? And so the different modes are huge because you can't necessarily do that. I mean, that's basically what these are. But like Claude, for example, it might just say, let me go ahead and execute this MCP. Let me do this. And then it's going to just run off and you don't even know like what the hell's happening right now, right? And then another key thing that I really like is if I just turn off auto select, I can hop LLMs and all in the same window. And this is powerful like as hell. You can hop over, like be careful on Macs. That will get you a high bill, in my opinion. It's 5 cents per request. So be careful on that. Claude 3.7, there it is. I can use Gemini. You can use DeepSeek, Grok 4.1. There's a long list of these. And when a new model comes out, they're pretty good about just adding it to the mix. They're constantly rolling updates. I'm sure Windsurf is too. But I know Cursor's rolling out updates left and right just to make it as easy as possible. Again, it's primarily for coding, but if you use it not so much as a database, but a knowledge base, and you work in the system prompts of like, your objective is to gather information so that, specific to the task or specific to the technology in order to check things. So that way you can have this alongside the rest of it. And it's going to be able to know exactly what you're talking about. So I don't think that I've seen anybody else yet that's used this. And, like I said, I talked to my some of my people that I'm consulting. My employees now have these too because it's important, I think, to just really stay keen on the latest and to be able to use these. Like, why not? You know what I mean? These are super powerful. And this is literally a super agent, if I had to call it that, because it can already execute MCP. And here's the thing. Right now, as a host, Claude is really the only chatbot you can execute MCP that's native to that, because OpenAI and all them still haven't yet put that in there. But you can execute MCP servers right now with like Gemini and Grok and any non-native like Anthropic. Obviously it's a protocol growing, but you can very easily use the same tools, same process, and hop around using different MCP servers all within the same thing. And then you don't have to worry about this chat got too long and then you lose everything, right? So with that, thanks for staying to the end of this video. I definitely hope, excuse me, it is definitely bedtime for me. My daughter just played softball, a doubleheader by the way, and she got nailed in the back so hard. Felt terrible. But I wanted to get this video out to you guys, and thanks for watching to the end. One last thing, we are launching a community called AI Power Junkies, and we're pretty pumped about it. I'm partnering up with two close friends of mine, and they are wonderful, Macklin and Andre. And our goal here is to share knowledge. Our goal here is to not just create another community, because, communities are great. To me, join all the communities, you know what I mean? I'm part of so many communities, but community is exactly that. You're connecting with people of like minds, just like for me in CrossFit. Like there's CrossFit communities, like, cool, bro, let's go do some cleans and some muscle ups or whatever, And then just like this, like there's clay communities, there's Instantly, there's a number of different communities, and it's really about sharing knowledge and helping each other out. And so for us, this is our way of really trying to be focused and share knowledge, to be able to interact and engage at a much deeper level other than surface level stuff. Of course, we want to keep pushing content, and I want to keep pushing content, which I definitely will. But this allows us to actually take the time to actually like get to know people and things like that. And so we're currently recording courses and things like that to help with the learning curves of clay, N8N, and that type of thing. But our goal here is, if you're an AI Power Junkie, as it says for itself, we would love to invite you guys to have it and be a part of it, because just like any new technology, these things are very new. Working in silos kind of sucks. You know what I mean? Like you can learn, but it's a lot easier to learn together, to experiment together. And so if we could, be a part of it and if I can do something bigger, especially for you to learn something new that I might not immediately think about. And then I would love to learn from you as well, because I definitely don't know it all. So that is for sure. But you know what? I can put on the record button and I can record my screen and hopefully share some value, right? So I would just say download Cursor or Windsurf and tinker around with it if you haven't already, and build yourself your own personal knowledge base, because it's worked well for me, it's worked well for my employees, and I think it will for you too. So anyway, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.